introduce myself. My name is Giacomo Iobizzi. I'm the Deputy Secretary General of the Thailand Chamber of Commerce. Michele, would you like to do the welcome for Peta, and then we start? We are perfectly on time.
So first of all, thank you, Peta, for the participant. This afternoon we have with us Peta Bassett, writer, professional writer, and she will be talking about sustainability in the slow food in the city, raising chickens, and pre-crisis gardening in downtown Bangkok. This episode is the number 6 of a series of food innovation that we are taking care of as a Thailand Chamber of Commerce. And for us, it's an honor to host Peta with us, and she will be soon sharing her experience in this topic. So with no much further ado, I will leave our virtual stage to Peta. Thank you a lot, and Peta, all yours.
Great, thanks, Michele. Lovely to be here, and as I said earlier, lovely to be speaking about chickens. It's a lovely topic, it's joyful, and it's a refreshing change from any business strategic communication, trying to think what's going to happen after COVID, as I'm sure everybody is trying to anticipate. So let's have a break. Let's think about chickens. I clearly, just before I start this, I'll look at a few aspects. I'll look at, first of all, give you the context of where we keep them, talk about our chickens, talk about some other chicken keeping projects in Thailand that I've come across, and then and also be a bit about the gardening that we have. I mentioned pre-crisis gardening because I didn't want you all to think that I had run out and suddenly planted a garden because of the crisis. However, there's some things, and yeah, if there's any questions along the way, okay. Just a bit of background about myself. Yes, I'm a writer, but also I come from advertising, and one of the things I used to do here was I was trying to figure out how to live like I wanted to within Bangkok. And so a few years ago, I co-founded a market with a partner, Hans Muller, who was also the owner of Spring Restaurant. And we were working together at JWT, J. Walter Thompson. And I said to him one day, your restaurant was born to be a market. And he said, sure, well, why don't we just do it? This scene that I have in front of you is from a couple of different markets. And I love particularly the one on the right, which is our long table that we would have once a year. The final one was December 2015. In the end, it didn't come off. There were a lot of other competing elements. But it's all been about, I guess, a personal journey back to nature, and also a journey for food transparency and sustainability in my work. So I write for a couple of different publications, mostly about food transparency, and I try to find out as much as I can about the food I have on my table. So with that in mind, this is the context of the garden and our house where we live. So I'm very conscious that what I'm talking about today is incredibly privileged. We live in Sukhumvit Soi 31, and this house has a special history. I'm sitting here on the terrace, but apparently U Nu, who was the first democratically elected leader of Myanmar and the longest serving, he lived in our house in exile, and apparently he was a good guy, so that feels very special. But you can see a little chicken over here, so you can see that we have space, and then we have some paving here, a paving project, and then down here we have the chicken coop, and here is a close-up of the chicken coop. And I will just spin around my camera and hope that you can also see the chicken coop over there. You can see a little roof and some trees. That's it, and then that's out to the garden. Okay. So that gives you a bit of context. The animals, the chickens have space, and they can run around. It's great. We only lock them up at night to protect them from certain elements like snakes. So introducing our brood. Here currently we have 6 hens, although we're not sure. We think one of these ones is a rooster, and that's a problem with this because in a small neighborhood environment, you don't want a rooster. So we are waiting a little bit longer to determine if it really is a rooster, and then we will have to not make soup, but we will retire it to a friend's place in Kanchanaburi. So right here we have a Plymouth Rock Leghorn cross. I quite like her. She's my favorite chicken. And then over here we have Isa Browns that they look quite plump and fluffy, and many people kind of salivate when they walk in, and we go, no, our chickens aren't for eating. And then down here we have the Lavender Sussexes, and the names of these chickens change all the time. This is Nikki, this is Polka Dot, this is Brownie. I lose track, I've got them, but my children and my husband changed the names. So these guys are Buttercup, they are Pigeon, this is something else. Lately they have been Tom, Dick and Harry, and because of the Sussex element, they have been Harry and Megan and Buttercup. So I lose track. But regardless, we know what breed they are, which is very good. We started in September 2016 with 7 chicks, and they're a gift for my daughter on the right-hand side here. And by February 2017, we had our first eggs. So, you know, just about 5 months. Now we've had about 24 chickens over 4 years. And I do recall in the first, I'm just admitting somebody else. There we go. Fantastic, Rosalind's joining. So in the first year, we had over 1,000 eggs, and we've kind of lost track of how many eggs we've collected over the years now. Not all of them are laying at the moment. I'll just go back up here, because some of them are, these 2 have stopped laying, and chickens can live, I think they can live for over 10 years at least. I did get an accurate, 5 to 10 years, people say. These chickens are already, so they were, what, 2016, September 2016, about that they were born. So they've come to the end of their laying life because they lay for about 2 years, but they can live for another 10. And this one is younger and still laying. These are yet to lay, they're not mature yet. Okay. So I just wanted to show you the stage of when we get the chickens, what we do with them. It's very makeshift and make do what we do here. We haven't got these integrated with the main brood, but these are the Lavender Sussexes. These are the white ones you saw a few slides ago, and this is them about 6 weeks ago. So they were significantly darker in color, and we kept them in the cage during the day so we didn't lose them. We were worried about getting into the underbrush. We were worried about snakes. And we gave them a little garden terrace with the aid of that chair. So they had a little lawn, and then they have their feed and their water. And they sleep in this at night still together in the main coop so that we don't have the larger chickens attack them. But we are trying to think about how we will integrate them, because hens can henpeck, and one of ours has gone blind from that at a friend's place. So we have to be very careful and make sure we manage the integration. Okay, so this is the permanent chicken coop. I showed my screen earlier and you could see that, and I'll just turn it around again. So that picture on the left is exactly that scene there. Oh, sorry, it should be like that. Yeah, there we go, that's that scene. And then over here we have these wonderful old trees. They're fantastic. We keep thinking this is dying, but it keeps coming back. And so they have a little yard to run around. We have a compost bin there and another one behind. And this is the coop that we have fenced off for them. So there's another compost there. And then we made sure, we built this, we made sure that it was, I should say we had it built. But we made sure we designed it so that no water, no flooding could get in, and also no animals could get through underneath. And we blocked off a drain that runs there. We have it sealed. And then inside, a permanent water feeder, an old children's high chair, and nesting boxes. Nesting boxes that are suspended on an old child's baby gate. So it's very much make do whatever we have. And although we have had up to 7 chickens, we only had 2 nesting boxes, and that was fine. They shared them, and they sleep at night. They actually sleep on top of the box. They sleep up there together, and the little hens sleep in their cage still. Just admitting some more people. Okay. So that's pretty much what it looks like. And they just go inside to lay. This one goes inside to lay. And she's the only one laying at the moment, unfortunately. The other ones are young, and the two brown ones have moved on from that part of their life. Feed. I thought it would be interesting to share with you the chicken feed. Everybody wants to know what they eat. We do give them our scraps. We do give them fruit and grains and food scraps. We don't give them meat, and particularly chicken meat. We don't give them that. That just, but we give them feed. This feed we buy at TICC, and this is the feed for the mature hens. This is the feed for the younger hens. And I think there is some soy mixed into it. I don't have the accurate breakdown, but also I understand it to be, there's fish in it as well. I'm concerned. This is the one element I can't control, because it doesn't seem that the chickens are satisfied with the food that we give them just in terms of scraps. They need something more, and they need more protein in the diet. So we do buy the chicken feed, but as I understand, a lot of this chicken feed is made from juvenile fish in Thailand. And that's a problem, because you've got such an enormous chicken industry here. And if they're being fed juvenile fish that are not able to grow, there's a problem for the fish industry, an imbalance there. So that is a concern. As far as I know, there are no hormones added, but I just have to take somebody's word for it. And we have a few friends who keep chickens, and we just ask around consistently to find out what we can do. But I've tried to improve this feed by fermenting, just like ferments are good for humans. Apparently, this is here when I left it, this is just, I put water into their feed, and here, this is 4 days later, and I just have this on an ongoing basis. And if I had this on a time lapse, there was just bubbles perpetually coming up. And the chickens loved it. It means that they don't have, you don't have to give them as much food, and they're satisfied more easily with it, but also it's very healthy for them, and it's easier to digest. An adult chicken probably has about 1/4 of a cup of chicken feed a day, and then they live on worms in the garden and grit and a lot of other things. Just admitting some more people. Okay, there we go. So so far I've just covered the context of where the chickens are. I've talked about the feed and what we feed them, and there's some more on the feed though. They love homegrown food. So this is our kitchen garden, and I say kitchen garden because it's at the back and it's the sunniest place. And for example, if I'm tidying up, there's a dill plant at the back, I'll throw dill in, or lemongrass. They didn't like the lemongrass, but I'll put feed out there. And I do find though I have to keep the chickens separated from this garden, because they like certain types of the plants that we have. And I'll come back and talk about what we have later, but they do also like plants on the bush. They don't like to be fed the leaves. They like to eat directly from it and pull it off. We have a big bougainvillea. They love to eat directly from that as well. And then you can see these juicy worms. I must mention Massimo. Massimo has been my connect into the Italian Chamber, and he was the one who invited me, I guess, to join this. And Massimo, with his grasshopper, cricket pasta, it's appropriate. These bugs, we harvest the bugs in our house, and we don't eat these, but our chickens do, and they're massive. They're fantastic protein. There are earthworms around as well. It's interesting though, if I'm gardening and I can't hand feed an earthworm to the chickens, because when I handle the worms release some kind of pheromone, I guess. And it's a warning system. It activates a warning system in them that makes them taste terrible. So the chickens no longer want to taste them. So the chickens have to discover them themselves, before they release this warning chemical. Okay. The favorite greens they have, I understand it to be a land cress. I got this from my children's school, where they have a magnificent rooftop garden. I hope it's still magnificent, as nobody has been there lately, but it grows magnificently, and we use it for a lot of salads. And it's not in water like a typical watercress. It's just planted in soil, and the chickens love it. They constantly get into that if they can, and you can see up here they are getting in and destroying it. So they love that. And then we create our own barriers to keep them away. So it's very, very makeshift. It's a constant project and a constant process to figure out how to solve this problem. But at the moment we are trying to keep bees and trying to attract bees. So I have a bee box. That's not working, but these twigs, so no honey to speak of, but these twigs have bees. I think they're solitary boring bees, and I haven't yet identified them, but there are bees inside these sticks, which is fantastic. So here another thing, before I get to the eggs and talk about the eggs, the chickens need to be hydrated constantly. So we have pools of water all around, very mindful of the mosquitoes, and so constantly tip them out like once a day. But it's great. You can see at any one time I have my 2 children here, my husband is working here as well, and so people will all come out and take a break, walk around, water the chickens, change their water, and or they sit and simply pick up a chicken and relax and pat it. So the animals really give us more than just eggs. The hydration element. If you were looking in one of the first slides, I talked about how we've had 24 chickens since September 2016. Now we have 6. What happened to them? A lot is connected with water. We had in February last year, February 2019, we had some little chicks. We had about 8, and they were just not provided with enough water one day, and they expired. It was awful. We thought we'd left them with enough, and that they hadn't. The other thing is 3 little chickens recently had too much grit, sand. Although they need grit for strong shells, they had just a bit too much, and their digestive systems were too immature. And that's partly the reason why we tried to keep them in their cage. The other thing is pythons. So we have had a python, and it took one. It came back for another one, and that one got scared, and it didn't get taken by the python, but definitely didn't. I think it was just, we can only attribute it to shock, but that one passed away too. And then another thing that happens is the chickens can get egg bound. This means that the egg gets stuck in the oviduct. And I'll show you a little later what we do to try and relieve the chicken, but also one has expired from that. So yes, 24 chickens, down to 6 at the moment. So these are the eggs. And I just wanted to point out, these are currently the eggs that are ours, these ones here, these white ones. Eggs, depending on which animal they're from, which bird they're from, it can change in color. Just admitting somebody else. And they're different colors depending on the breed. So our other chickens, the Leghorn cross, the Plymouth Leghorn cross, she lays the white ones. The other ones lay chicken eggs that are more this color. The largest one we have ever had, that is it. We've emptied it. We've blown it, emptied it, and we collect it. And this is the smallest. So sometimes it can be the maturity of the chicken. It can be their feed. And apparently giving chickens the fermented feed I showed before can help them lay bigger eggs. Down here, I've shown what we do after we crack the eggshells. We grind them up into as fine a powder as possible, and we put it back in the chicken scraps and mix it with fruit and cereals and whatever else we might be throwing away, and we give it back to the chickens, and it's good for their shells. And they can also eat egg. If we've got scrambled eggs and we put that in the chicken bin, they can eat that too. The best thing is we have to make sure that we don't feed them or put a whole egg or leave big eggshell particles in their feed, because otherwise they will get used to it and they'll eat their own eggs. Okay. So then this is a little aside. We have lots of different egg nests that bird's nests that people have have given to us over time. I inherited a friend's collection, and then somebody else found one on a path in Sri Lanka, and some are from New Zealand. They've been discarded nests, and the warmer weather ones are much more tightly woven, but this is where we keep our eggs. This being the largest chicken egg we have, this being the small, and an egg we found in the garden. And just here, a gecko came along one day and laid eggs in these nests. So this is just a small thing, an educational thing, I guess, for my children as well as adults. It's really amazing the number of adults that we have that, you know, I think we all get disconnected from our food, from our farms, that our, you know, my grandparents, both sides, were farmers, and for 5 generations, but I don't know the first thing about a lot of farming. So I think in that disconnection process, we forget things in our urban lives. So a number of people come to us and ask us, why don't the eggs hatch? And my kids will explain, well, they need a rooster. And then my kids go on to explain why. This is another scene of eggs. We had an issue at one stage with with no eggs. Our chickens weren't laying, and we didn't know what the problem was. And I thought it was because I had changed over something in their nesting box. But our neighbors, this is a boundary wall that we share with our neighbors, and they smelt something. The chickens, one chicken had gone and had started laying in secret behind a tree that we couldn't really access easily. So we dug them out, we put them on the lawn, and I was interested to count them, not to eat them. And also I put them in a container of water to see, actually just curious how, to show the kids if they were rotten, the rotten eggs would rise due to the bad gases. Anyway, they exploded. They exploded in my face, 2 of them. And it's a putrid smell that just remains with me. And I had to shower a couple of times to get it off. It's a very sulfuric smell. So at the moment we figured out that, again, it's a trial and error process, but chickens hiding their eggs is a common thing. And luckily that didn't attract snakes. So we're very fortunate. This is really interesting. Chickens love, one of the habits of our chickens, and all chickens, they love sand bathing. Yes, correct, sand bathing. So they use it to put sand all through their feathers, and then they shake out their feathers, and with that shakes out any irritation or bugs. And regularly they'll go out and do this during the day. So it's a point of interest. And at this time, I might just actually say, I'll get to the questions in a second, but I might just say, actually, I'll bring Daniel into this. Daniel Bush is on the call, I understand. And I had the good fortune to go down and look at his rooftop chicken farming enterprise at the Marriott Marquis on Sukhumvit 20, I believe, right? And it was interesting though, it was amazingly clean. And what we picked up with that was, of course, you're in a hotel, you need to keep these things clean. What we picked up though was the chickens there seemed to be, and Daniel, when you can speak, we could speak about this, but your chickens seemed to, they needed more sand or something to shake through their feathers because they seem to have an irritated skin. And my kids suggested to your staff that they get a sand pit or something to help them do this. But sand bathing is a really important part of what they do. They also like sunbathing, and you can see them throughout the day. They will go out and sit in the sun. They won't roast though, they'll go back in and cool down by standing in some water. So it's the vitamin D, I guess, that we all need. Here is an example of what we do when we find that the chickens are egg bound. We've been told that what we need to do is, we looked it up, we need to give them a bath in Epsom salts, magnesium salts. So I found them, sourced them, and we would give them slightly warm baths, and it seemed to relieve the chickens. And this one was egg bound, and she survived. And also, this sounds a little crude, but you needed to use some gloves and the oil and try and massage her rear end and help the egg come out. For somebody who's not that was a little bit gross, but it's all a part of farming. This one we thought was having trouble as well, and we thought she might have been egg bound. However, she has injured her foot somehow, and we were bathing her. She enjoyed it, but we thought she might have had something called bumblefoot, and bumblefoot is where they can get an infection in the pad of their feet. She didn't. We just think it might be a bit of age, or she might have jumped down and twisted her ankle or done something. And so she's getting a bit better. But we do bathe our chickens, bizarrely, strangely, but good for them. So before I get to the other chicken projects, I'm seeing there are some questions, and I thought I would answer them. So here, have you found that the yolk color can change not just on nutritious properties of feed, but also pigment? Yes. Saffron, yes. That's my next project to try, Gary. Thanks for asking. And yeah, sure, bring the chicken. It is a project to try. This is Gigi. Would you like to introduce?
So this is Polka Dot, and this chicken is the one in the pink ball.
Yes.
Bowl.
So talking about the pigments, if you also feed them chili, they have a sensor that doesn't pick up on the heat, so their eggs can be, their yolks can be red. And the other thing about it is you can feed them, I think, marigold. And I met not so long ago a Thai importer he imports marigolds in significant quantities for chicken feed in Thailand, because it's also very healthy for them. But we haven't experimented with that yet, and we want to. Before the next question, here's the next chicken. Her name is Nikki. Put her on the camera.
This is Nikki, and yeah.
And she's blind in one eye. She was henpecked in a previous brood.
This one.
Great.
This side.
Okay. Now, next question, is cleaning a big challenge? No, look, it's not actually. We have the space. If we were in, if we were in a smaller space, I think it would be. But we clean it out, and we'll sweep it maybe once when we see it building up. But the chickens are outside so much, it's fine. But also the chicken droppings dry, and we can shovel that off and put it in the garden. And I'm very close to the chicken coop right now, but there's no smell, and we haven't had our neighbors complain at all. So that's fine. But the routine, as Giacomo asks, the routine is we get up and we need to let them out of their coop as early in the morning as they want. We're not being woken at 5, but we just get up at about 7:30. And then we then we make sure they have feed and water, and then throughout the day as well. And yes, Gary, the Marriott Marquis is beautiful, and it's wonderful, much neater than ours. Okay, so then the next thing, I just wanted to talk about other projects that I have come across in Thailand. And perhaps, Gary, you're involved. I don't know, you're involved with Hilltribe Organics? I guess I can't hear him right now. Hello.
Hey, yeah, I was involved with them. And cool that you're talking about the project.
Yeah, fantastic. Great. Yeah, no, I wanted to mention them because I wrote an article for the Nikkei. I contribute to the Nikkei Asian Review from time to time. And I did a story on the pleasures of urban chicken farming. And I interviewed, actually, Hilltribe Organics for this, but I didn't meet with you clearly. But I was really impressed, and correct me if I'm wrong, I was impressed by the way you have this project in the north of Thailand, and you work with communities. It's the Aka and the Karen communities, is it? And yeah. I was impressed with the way you provide a development project where you give the animals the know-how, the feed, and also development for them. Would you like to expand on what you do?
Sure, I no longer work there, but happy to talk about it because it's a wonderful project. But yeah, they were able to provide the chickens, provide the feed, and provide the veterinary care to a family, and it would be about 500 chickens or so, so pretty substantial brood. And in return, the families would they would set up the chicken coop. They would build the coop and everything as per our
I've just
suggestions.
Lost.
And then what would happen after that is that they would have the coop, and we'd provide the chickens, and then we'd buy back the eggs. So the farmers would basically build the coop and take care of the chickens, and then in return, we would be able to buy back the eggs, and that would triple their incomes in many cases. So a lot of these rice farmers and corn farmers that are in the hill tribes, in the hills kind of close to Chiang Mai in Hua Huy province.
Thanks, Gary. Yeah, I'm glad you're on the call, and I was really impressed with the operation and when I covered it. And I still have, actually, this is a Hilltribe organic egg here that I will show you a comparison with my egg and that egg in a second. But yeah, thank you. That's wonderful.
No,
the next thing is I also want to talk about the Six Senses group, and they have chickens. Definitely, I don't know if they have them at all of their resorts, but they have them in Samui. They definitely have them in Vietnam. They have them in the Maldives, and I think they may have them in the Middle East. And Jeff Smith, who is their sustainability director today, to find out what their latest count is, because they keep a count of the chickens. And I did a presentation actually recently for their sustainability team on chickens, but they're fantastic. And the one thing, I haven't got the updated figures, but Jeff did say that he's kind of had to rein in some of the managers because they've gotten very excited about the chicken production. And he's had to remind them that we're in the tourism or the guest business. We're not in the business of chicken farming. So I think it's exciting. It's been exciting apparently for everybody involved, whether it be the chefs, guests, or management. And it's wonderful that it's an example of a luxury resort too, that is putting into practice its values. Okay, so that's, I think, an impressive project. This is the Sunseri backyard at T77. I haven't actually personally been up there. A friend did go a few weeks ago and said that it's still pretty much getting started, but as I understand it started last year, at the end of last year. And you can go and see the chickens, and you can also, they've got hot houses as well, and they're growing various produce too. So demonstration farm and a cafe as well. So I just wanted to highlight opportunities where you can see chickens within the city, even if you can't, if you don't have the luxury of a garden. And then here, I don't know if many of you have been to Bangkok, which is, or Prapadang, across the river. But I don't know if you've been to the new Get Growing community farm that is over there. I was there in January this year, and I think they only opened earlier this year in January. We were there on Children's Day, and they had community children in there having a great time on their obstacle course, and the chickens look amazing. So there are opportunities, I think, for people to access chickens. Maybe you can't keep chickens in your own place, but you can access chickens within the city. Now, this, if you can't access chickens in the city and you want to do something at home, you could always tune into, this is the Hungry Hens live streaming chicken coop. And I thought this was an interesting project, and I want to show it to you guys. It's nighttime there at the moment, and I think it's in the US. Yeah, here we go. So over here you can see, that it's 3:31 a.m. And what happens is normally you can, by I think liking it, you can give treats and popcorn or little treats to the chickens, and they're released. They are fed at other times too, but it enables you to normally during daylight hours see the chicken run. So another time, I think, log on and see what it's like, and they give a tally of the chickens, and they also give you an update of who the chickens are. So this is their chicken cheeks, Clark Norris. They'll give you the breed and what type of eggs they have. And I would think that if you're a resort, you could also give live feeds to your guests in the room of what's happening in the chicken coop. I think schools should have chickens, the very least schools should. And I've got a child who's saying yes, yes. Yeah, you should have, and you could put live feeds into the classrooms. And I think we all learn so much from this, which is fantastic. Another chicken to introduce.
So,
you can lift her up. Go. Here we go.
This is Brownie. This chicken is Brownie, and yeah.
Okay.
She's Brownie.
There we go. Fantastic.
Feathers.
Okay. There we go. And then I'll just return to the presentation. Here we go. Here we go. Yep. And so, yeah, just log on another time, have a look at that. I thought it was quite interesting. The garden, just to talk about briefly about our garden. It's not huge, but from this we do have, we have a butterfly pea there. We have turmeric, which is fantastic. I like to drink that or make a chai from that. We have about 3 varieties of basil. We have hence the pesto. And quite often we will just have, I don't have much lettuce growing, it just wilts. But it just doesn't survive the heat here in our garden, and we don't, probably it's our pots and the size of it, but as we don't have a raised garden bed. But we'll quite often make salads of mixed leaves. They could be chili leaves, basil leaves. These are all basil at the moment, but just a combination. And there, yeah, that feeds us. I like this beetle leaf, or I think it's bai chompu, and a tradition for making myenkam, or I will also chop it finely and put it in a salad too. I don't eat too much of it. I find it's a very strong flavor. Just to show you something that helps when I'm planting seedlings, toilet rolls, then I can transplant them quite readily, and it supports the seedlings. And so just a small aside there. And then here are some of the things we are growing. Right here we have, for example, we'll plant a beetroot or plant with leaves, and we'll plant onions and just have ongoing something ongoing and peppery that we can put in our food. Here we have some okra, and again the turmeric, ginger, dill. At the moment I should just say we've got pumpkin down here, and it was flowering the other day, but it's really looking quite sad. So we have had a squash grow in the neighbour's yard, and we found that and brought it back. So this kitchen garden really supplements our cooking. We have a curry leaf tree, the Indian curry leaf tree, which is delicious. Yeah, I couldn't have a dinner party on this, but it's definitely something that enhances the flavour of our cooking, teaches us where our food comes from, and also provides some food from time to time to the chickens. And I believe that's it. And I thought I would just finish this journey back to nature, and my son eyeing off the chicken. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Peta. I don't know if someone in the audience have some question, but I'm very curious also to ask you how many eggs do you collect every day, or I don't know.
Oh, yeah. Okay, baby chicken here. As I mentioned before, actually, yeah, we just have.
This is Buttercup.
Yeah. We're just getting one at the moment.
And she's Lavender Sussex.
Yeah, we just have one at the moment, 1 egg a day, unfortunately, because we have the 2 older ones aren't laying, and then the black and white one is laying, and the 3 young ones are not mature enough. So a couple of more months for them. We will, at one time though, it was about six a day. And that was a lot, enough even for my son to decide that he wanted an egg stall outside on the street. But yeah, it's enough. I want to do one more thing, Giacomo. I want to show you the eggs, because another thing too, is that we don't refrigerate our eggs. The eggs that we get, we don't refrigerate because they have a protective coating on them. I understand a lot of commercial eggs are washed, particularly in places like Australia and the US. They're washed to remove any fecal matter and other matter on them. And so with that, you're removing a protection and making it quite porous, and you have to refrigerate. We don't though, and they quite well. But the difference between that, and I think the porosity of the egg, the commercial one, once after it's washed, and if it stays around for too long, gets quite runny and can get it's contradiction, runny but also dehydrated, and doesn't hold its shape as well, and ours does. So I wanted to crack the egg and then figure out if I can show you it. I don't have a separate webcam, but this is our egg. Gigi, can you hold the bowl up here, please? You just hold the bowl. Yeah, you hold the bowl. This is our egg, and that's the color of it. This one, can you see that, Giacomo?
Yeah, sure. Maybe a bit up. Oh,
A bit up.
Okay, yeah. Now it's.
Yeah. So that's our egg, and then the other one, the commercial one. Okay, can you hold the? Yeah, I'll do it. You hold the bowl. This could get really messy. Okay, can you see that one?
A bit up?
Yeah.
Okay, yes.
That one's actually new. I bought it yesterday, so it seems pretty good. But other ones just are incredibly runny, and it's a different color. This is just the different color of ours versus that, and ours is much smaller. But other ones, if I leave them for, they get old quickly, the ones I buy, and ours just seem to, we don't refrigerate them, we use them, yeah, they seem to stay a bit fresher for longer. So that's that. Yeah. Okay.
That's interesting. And
who knew we would be talking about this?
No, but it's good. It's always something new to learn every day, and we didn't expect actually to meet or to host someone talking about chicken in the city, or how to have also city farm in the garden, which is absolutely interesting and also very important for sustainability. And I don't know if we have other questions, but I see in the chat, yes, maybe Daniel. Yeah,
not really a question. I just wanted to confirm that the fresh eggs that have never been refrigerated definitely hold their shape way better. So when you poach them, especially if you do poached eggs, you see the difference massively. Like when we poach our fresh ones from the chickens, the few that we have in our farm, they keep their shape. Whether you put vinegar or not doesn't make a difference. Like you just drop them in hot water and they keep like a perfectly in shape poached egg. Whereas with commercial eggs that have been refrigerated, you have to add vinegar and stir the water to make sure you keep the shape together. With those eggs, you don't have to do that. You just drop them in hot water. That's it.
Exactly. And I didn't have my camera with me that day when I visited Daniel, when I visited with Michael, when I visited your farm. But how are your chickens at the moment, I should ask?
Yeah, we had to close the hotel due to COVID, so I was worried having them in a closed hotel. So I've sent them home with one of my staff that has upcountry a chicken farm anyway. So they're currently on a vacation outside of Bangkok. The garden's still there, but so the chickens are not there at the moment.
That's great. And so Daniel, also I think forgive me, I can't remember his name, but you have another. Your colleague, Michael Hogan, right? Michael Hogan.
Yeah, right.
I was speaking with him one day about your chicken project, and he said, when you first started it, you assumed that all your staff, everyone would know how to keep chickens, but he just pointed out what I felt, that we're all kind of disconnected from it. So has it been a learning journey for you, for your staff?
For our staff, it was massive, and I can only. It's so funny because I've actually, now that a lot of my chefs are home during COVID and are also sort of stuck at home, I've received so many photos of many of them that have bought chickens and started to keep chickens themselves. And it really sort of reconfirms that it's really a disconnect where we just feel intimidated by the idea and we don't know how to do it. But once you actually figure, like once you have them there and you realize, oh, actually there's not so much to it, they felt really encouraged to do it themselves. And I've had 3 of my chefs sending me photos that started here in Bangkok, little chicken farms in their backyard now during COVID because they felt it's a great thing to do.
That's fantastic. As I can see, Gary has said, yeah, slow food movement, and it's great that you have then also seeded that and gone beyond the boundaries of your hotel. I think it's also, we were saying, it's hot at the moment, and we do not have a pool or access to a pool. But for me, the value of it was when my son, who's 13, said, chickens are way better than a pool. So I went, okay, we'll take that.
Okay, no, that's very, very interesting. And I have a question for both of you, since we're talking about chicken. I know that maybe for you, Peta, you don't consume the meat of the chicken, of your own chicken, but maybe from the restaurant side, I would like to ask which is if there is any difference also in taste, and also I guess in the dimension of the chicken itself, because the one that maybe are from I don't know, maybe selected plants or farms, the meat and also the feeding help them to grow and are not the same quality also of the one that is raised at home. What do you think about this?
For me or for Daniel?
For both of you, I would like to understand.
Okay. Yeah, so as far, I wasn't sure if you were asking about chicken meat. I mean, I definitely find it more, I do eat chicken meat, but just not our chickens. And yeah, that feels wrong. And, you know, I have a cousin who's an organic farmer, and before she came to visit me in January, she's the real deal. And she didn't want her chickens who had stopped laying to be taken by foxes. So she killed them herself. She figured if I raised them, I killed them. And she did it humanely. And she laid them out and she thanked them for their service and went, I can't do that. And our chickens, they will live to over 10 years, but we have a retirement village plan to Kanchanaburi where our friends have a place. But as far as the taste, yeah, I buy Syrian chicken, or I try to buy, the plumped up chicken. When I look at that versus the chicken meat that I try to buy and find as organic as possible, I think there is a more flavorful, even though it might not be as plump and meaty. As far as the eggs are concerned, yeah, the taste of our eggs, we can't really describe it, but if I buy commercial, I buy the Hilltribe. And Gary, you can see I'm not saying that, it's in the presentation. So I just find that ours keep the shape and the color, the brightness of the color, and the quality. It's yeah, and we're biased, but yeah, it's I can't talk to as much about the food expertise as Daniel might be able to offer.
I've cut some of our chickens up also just out of curiosity. They smell really good and they make a nice stock, but they are laying hens, so they're skinny, like they're really skinny. And I just threw them in a stock. I'd imagine they'd be too tough to actually eat as a fried chicken unless you really brine them. If you wanted to do chickens for the meat, then you probably have to use different feed and a different breed.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, just to speak to that quickly, I know that early on they tested the Hilltribe Organic chickens, and they're way too tough. I mean, when you have these free-range chickens that are running around and that breed, they're not made for that good meat. They're made to have healthy and happy lives.
Mine eat a lot of herbs too. Like we have a herb garden there, and they're, like Peta said, they love to pick the herbs. So they are really fragrant. Like if you use them for stocks, it makes a really, really nice, tasty stock.
Right. Yeah. We had I think in the picture you showed, you see the pineapples growing in that farm, that specific farm. Yeah, little things like that. Every farm will have a little bit different. Maybe they'll have different fruits that the chickens will eat. So it's always nice to see the variety.
So I guess it's like bees, wild bees, and different vegetation they might feed off. You can actually taste the terroir in it, I guess. But Gary, also speaking to the question that comes through from MJ, the question about injecting hormones. As I understand it, hormones are injected for the meat of the chicken, and I would imagine though it's to make it plump in the meat, chickens for meat. But also I would imagine that hormones are injected for eggs to give them larger eggs. I don't know. Can you elaborate on that?
Well, my experience with Hilltribe Organics doesn't let me. I don't have an experience with that because Hilltribe Organics had no hormones, no antibiotics or anything like that in order to get the organic certification. But that can be standard heard of, usually within the feed. things like that to help them grow. Usually genetically modified soy and things like that that often will be used to overfeed them. So yeah, in terms of making them more productive, it's really just happier and healthier lives. Yeah.
But that's talking about the feed. I mean, that's my concern with this fish, the feed that we have, the bought feed, because I don't know for 100% sure. I can't be sure that it's 100% organic and natural.
Yeah,
I don't know
corn is the tough one. Getting non-GMO corn or organic corn to be included in the feed, that's usually the tricky ingredient.
Mm. Mm.
We've started making our feed entirely ourselves. I don't like in the beginning. I used the same feed, like this JJ market style feed.
Yeah. Yep.
But we've stopped that completely. We just make it, and we use broken rice, and we use vegetables, herbs, all mixed, blended together.
Fantastic.
And it seems to work really well. Like they kept laying the same, and none of them complained. Nobody. I had no chickens walking up to me and saying, "Hey, this doesn't work for me." So we've stopped buying in. Oh, and
Daniel,
one thing.
I think you need a live webcam. I think you need a webcam in your chicken coop so we can.
Maybe the one thing I did keep adding that is not a vegetable is we have a lot of oyster shells, and Brian from Right Tongue recommended that would be a good calcium add. And since we use a lot of oysters in the buffets and so on anyway, we did start breaking some of these shells with a hammer into like a powder and add that to the feed as well, and they seem to love that too.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's why we actually grind our own eggs back into the feed, and as well we bring sand from the beach, and we do that. And if we're at the beach and we pick up the cuttlefish, we'll pick up cuttlefish and we will grind that down into a powder for them, and they eat that. Don't have an endless supply of oysters in the house though. I might stop by.
So you were mentioning about snakes, but there are other elements that might negatively influence the life of the chicken. I don't know, maybe.
I think heat, dehydration, quality of feed. Friends have this supplement that they give but I don't know what it is. It makes up a pink water and gives them extra vitamins. We don't do that. We just give them our food scraps as much as possible, and the fermenting I'm doing now. But yeah, the snake one was interesting. And the dogs, another one was taken by our dog. Yes, but then the chickens grew up in a healthy respect. The chickens gained critical mass, and now there are 6 chickens and a dog, and it's fine.
And instead, can you share with us also how long will it take for the little chick to become a chicken to lay eggs? How long will it take this process? And do you go to buy the little chick, or you are able to take it from the eggs that they are laying out?
For us, it was about 5 months. It was September 2016 to February 2017. And that was for the Isa Brown breed. And and we get them from friends who have a place in Kanchanaburi. They live at Ari, and they have a tiny property, but they have a chicken run, and they actually have more chickens than we do. But they have an incubator now as well. So they will bring the eggs back from Kanchanaburi, keep them in the incubator, date them. And I've been over there when a little beak was coming out. But typically we get them from them when they're just a bit older. It's just me getting over there really. But it's best to keep them in an incubator, and we don't have an incubator. So we've got them when they're about 2 weeks old. But I know you can buy them and have them delivered, yeah. The other thing I wanted to say, I was thinking about getting a goat at one stage. I thought about a goat to eat the vegetable matter in the garden and dispose of it. And Six Senses Samui has goats, and that's what they do. And I thought, okay, well, I can't keep a goat in the place in Bangkok because it might eat more than that. It might eat our clothes, it'll eat a lot. But I thought maybe I could rent a goat. And I found a goat farm, and the owner and I had a discussion, but we decided it would be a bit cruel to transport the goat here and then back, and a bit ineffectual. But I'm very impressed with the Six Senses project where they do that. and I guess inner city hotels don't have the need for that, but a resort where instead of having to burn or do anything else, to have a goat on site that can come and chew through the matter is interesting. It's also interesting for the guests. So yeah, that's a Samui property.
Okay, wow. I couldn't expect a goat also in a farm like this. Okay. I don't know if someone else want to ask any question. Please feel free to do it. Also, maybe we have Alberto from Italy, very close to Bologna. Maybe he's more familiar with pigs. But
Giacomo, I grew up in a big farm, so I know very well chicken.
Okay, you know very well, and you are also lucky to stay in that area. It's very famous for food, and you have a lot of amazing and favorite products. Okay.
The only thing I would say is, actually, I think my internet's unstable. Yeah. The only thing I would say is that to add to this further, and it connected with Hilltribe, a few years ago, I think that there wasn't so much of an offering in the supermarket with what you could buy in terms of organic eggs. And I think now there's a greater offering, but the packaging is quite deceptive. You have to really look closely to see what's truly organic, or what's just picking up the packaging cues, like plain cardboard, or if they're just writing free. So that's why I also wanted to interview the source of my food at times and go back to the source and find out more about it. But I think there are a lot more offerings. It's just whether they're valid or not.
Right. Okay. I don't know if anyone would like to say something. It's 3:30. I would say that we can conclude our webinar with our amazing host and guest for today, Peta. And nothing. I would like to say that this is a very interesting webinar for us. We never did or talk anything like this. It's a very original topic, and I would like to thank also Peta for this wonderful time we spent together. Again, we will have the next episode on Friday next week, and I would like everyone also to watch the episode that we have recorded today on our YouTube channel. It will be ready around 7:38 p.m. And that's it. Thank you very much, Peta. And also we look forward to welcome a new guest. Like we will have also Mr. Daniel Bucher in the few weeks in June. And thank you very much for staying with us. Michele, would you like to say something? I don't know if he's still with us.
Okay. Thank you, Giacomo. But you said everything. So for me, I just say thank you again to Peta for being with us and sharing your experience. And of course, stay tuned. We will have many webinars to come, and the next one will be about coffee with Ilko from Chiang Mai. So thank you again, and guys, enjoy your weekend, and have a nice break.
Okay, thank you. I look forward to Daniel's talk. Okay, bye. Thank you for having me. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Ciao.